Good morning, everyone. Hope all is well. Hope everyone is doing all right. Trying to see if everybody's in before we get started. All right, looks like majority is in. So, before you get into, don't go into all of this copying because we have to switch to another page before we get here. If you're going to start copying yet, let's see. Good morning. Good morning. So we are, in the process of closing out, y'all. Let's see how many more weeks we have left. I know it's not that many of them. Yeah, so we got this week, next week, and then the week after that would be final week, I believe. Look at this, Bob. Yep. So before we get into, because we only have two sections, 10.1 and 10.2, to discuss now. Let's map this thing out real quick. There we go. So we're looking at, today is 4/11. That means Wednesday be 4/13. Then it should be 18, 20, and 25, 27. All right. All right. So this week is finals week. And yeah, trying to make sure I got everything I want to say. Okay. So the semester, as far as SIS, everything ends. So we got a few people trying to get in here. I think that's 5/2. All right, so this is what we're looking at as far as calendar is concerned, what we have left, counting today. Good morning, sir. Good morning. So I'm looking at today doing 10.1, next class doing 10.2, and that will be the end of new material, So we're not looking to do anything else. There is not a separate test for 10.2, for chapter 10. So this week and this day will be review for you guys to use whatever way you see fit. You come to the class, ask whatever questions you want to ask. And then our final exam, I just put FE, would be on this day. All right. So now I will be doing my final exam the same way that I did. I'm doing the test. So you got your first attempt. Now, when it comes to the final, everybody has to take the final proctor. Like that one, you don't get an optional. Remember the other test had the option to take the 85 hit. Everybody has to take the test proctored for your final exam. That's not an option. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, then I will give you a second attempt. And through Math Lab. And the highest you can get on that is 75%. That's how I normally do that. Because your final exam is not supposed to be, you're not supposed to have that option for your final exam anyway, But try to give you guys the opportunity to get it, the grade that you desire. So, if the proctor test, you end up not getting the grade that you want on it. Once again, 75%, if you did everything you were supposed to do leading up to it, 75 on your final exam would not stop you from getting the grade that you want. No, final exam will all be Zoom, just like everything else. Yep. So I won't switch it up on you on last day of class. I'm not gonna switch the game up on you. All right. So what I will do, well, I can give you till 5/1. I think that's what's in Math Lab already. You have until 5/1 to submit all work. So And that's in MATLAB. It should be reflected in MATLAB already. And most definitely, if you don't see that, let me know. So your second attempt will have that due date as well, you know, May 1st. So yeah, so that's what we got left. Questions on what I said up to this point, make sure we're good. So, you know, last date that's in SIS is 5/2, that's a Monday. So we don't want to push stuff to a Monday, because if I push your finals down to a Monday, then you don't have the opportunity of taking advantage of a makeup opportunity and stuff like that. So I'm trying to give you, and you know, cushion. And then I have 2 classes on Monday and Wednesday that are back to back. So it's either y'all do it on Monday or y'all do it on Wednesday. So I'm giving you guys Wednesday, I'm gonna give the other class Monday. You know what I mean? Because it's a 2-hour block that we'll set aside. One will run into the other. So that's why we're doing it on Wednesday. My other class will get the Monday. All right. All right. So questions on anything that was said? Very good. And I'll shoot you an email with this stuff on it, and just to, you know, further support what was said here. But yeah, that's how we're gonna look to operate moving forward, close out the semester. All right. The highest grade on the final exam could be is going to be a 65 or 75. Yes. Yep. So now it's not if you take it later. You have to take the first attempt when it comes to your final exam. That's not an option. Everybody has to take the final exam properly. So now if you don't score at least a 75 on it, you can take advantage of the makeup. So, oh yeah, no problem. Not a problem at all. Yeah, you know, it's all good. Thanks for letting me know. But so for the, you know, for a couple of your classmates that just joined us, we're talking about how we, you know, just mapping out the rest of the semester. We only have 2 more sections left. We'll do 10-1 today, 10-2 next class. So 10-1 is hypothesis testing, just introducing you to it. 10-2 is us walking through the steps. You know, I walk through all the steps and everything, making sure you're good. So that means after 10-2, there's no more new material. So the rest of, you know, the rest of our 3 days would just be review days. And then the final exam will be here. Yep. All right, is everybody good before we go to 10-1? All right. And we'll talk more about it as we get there, we get closer to it. So this is the title, only copy the title because I'm going to switch to another page of notes, but it's the language of hypothesis testing. So I have to go to these picture notes. All right. It's supposed to be pulled up. Give me 1 second. Now, this right here are steps to hypothesis testing. This is what we will be using next class. I'm going to send this to you, a copy of this to you, hopefully before the day is up. I shouldn't forget. I got it in my to-do list, but I'll send this to you just so you have a copy of it. It's just a page from the book. Let me see, is this gonna let me? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so here's 10-1, the language of hypothesis testing. So a hypothesis is a statement regarding a characteristic of one or more populations. All right, hypothesis testing is, I don't know if I said hypothesis testing. Well, the first statement was just hypothesis. Second thing is hypothesis testing is a procedure based on sample evidence and probability used to test statements regarding a characteristic of one or more populations. All right, scrolling up. All right, steps in hypothesis testing. This is if you want to do the hypothesis testing like from scratch on your own. We're going to have some certain things in place, statements going to already be made and everything, of course, because we're going to have an example. But if you're just talking about hypothesis testing from scratch, it says make a statement regarding the nature of the population, collect evidence, or in other words, sample data to test the statement, and then you can analyze the data to assess the plausibility of the statement. All right, scrolling up. Let me know if I go too far. Am I doing 2 and 3? Oh, somebody said something. All right, not a problem. I'll pause right here. Okay, not a problem, not a problem. Everybody else good? She says she's straight. Okay, cool. So now you're going to have two types of hypotheses or two hypothesis statements. One is your null hypothesis, and that's denoted by H naught, or sometimes people say HO. It's the statement to be tested. It's the statement of no change, no effect, or no difference, and is assumed to be true until evidence indicate otherwise. And yes, I did leave off my E right here. Should be change. Your alternative hypothesis is denoted by H1. Some books, and if you were to do some other research trying to, let's say you go fiddling around trying to figure out certain things and you see HA, that's the same thing, H1 or HA. Your book uses H1. It's a statement that we are trying to find evidence to support. All right, scrolling up some. That's the end of that page. So trying to make sure everybody got it before I go. All right, can we scroll up? Anybody holding on to alternative hypothesis? Sorry, these notes are kind of spaced out. Everybody good? All right. So we have 3 tests. So we have a two-tailed test. And notice it's called two-tailed because it's going to have 2 tails involved as far as our analysis is concerned. The next 2 are one-tailed tests, one over here, one over here. So when it comes to your hypothesis testing, notice that all of this is the same in all 3 cases. The only thing that's different is just the sign. And so that's what's going to, and it leans back on what we were doing with our Z-score. Remember, there was certain phrasing that told us what to do, whether it was less than, greater than, or something along those lines. So, two-tailed, you're going to state your null hypothesis. Your null hypothesis will always be equal. We'll reemphasize that when we get to actually walking through it. But notice your null hypothesis is always equal. And then your parameter are the same. Whatever symbolism you're using for your null, you use it for your alternative hypothesis. Whatever value you use for the null, you use for your alternative hypothesis. And so that's going to be the same. The only thing that's going to be different is what's going on with your symbols. And like I said, this is always equal. And then the wording in the problem will tell you if it's not equal to, less than, or greater than. If it's not equal to, then it's going to be two-tailed. If it's less than, left tail. If it's greater than, right tail. All right, can we scroll up? Right down with the right tail. All right, so let's look at the first one. So we're not walking through the process today. We're just establishing, look, you see the direction says determine the null and alternative hypothesis, state whether the test is two-tailed, left-tailed, or right-tailed. So that's all we're doing. We're not walking through the process. We're just establishing what the null hypothesis is, what the alternative hypothesis is, then whether it's right-tailed, two-tailed, or left-tailed. So we have the Medco pharmaceutical company has just developed a new antibiotic for children. 2% of children taking competing antibiotics experience headaches as a side effect. A researcher for the Food and Drug Administration wishes to know if the percentage of children taking the new antibiotic who experience headaches as a side effect is more than 2%. So I'll give you a chance to write that down and then we'll walk through it. Um, just extra credit. You said, will I add extra credit to the final grade? Not sure what you mean. Are you talking about by doing the test reviews? So if you're talking about that, then I do add that at the final, at the end of the grade in the semester. Yeah, you know, you have test reviews. I said that you could add 5 points to your test. Oh yeah, any extra credit I've already established, then yeah, I'm gonna do that at the end of the semester. I calculate all this stuff in. I thought you were just talking about, am I just gonna add extra credit or something like that? But no, yeah, I do all this stuff at the end when I'm calculating final grades. All right, so let's look at what we have here. So you always start off HO and H1 or H naught and H1. Have your colon, that's always the case as well. Then now we're talking about a percentage. So we're using the P for percentage. Once again, this is always equal. And the percentage that we're looking at is 2%. So we wrote that as 0.02. So notice if I use P in my null hypothesis, I need to use P in my alternative hypothesis. If I use 0.02 in my null, I need to be using 0.02 in my alternative. So the only thing we need to really establish and make sure we get correct is this right here. And we're going to use the greater than symbol because it says more than 2%. Okay, and because it says more than, that means it is right tail. All right, any problems with that before we go to the next one? Can we scroll up? All right, so the next one, blue book price of a used 3-year-old Chevy Corvette is $86,012. Grant wonders if the mean price of a used 3-year-old Chevy Corvette in Miami is different from $86,012. All right, so same vibe, H naught and H1, colons. Now this time we're looking at the mean price, so we use the mean symbol. A lot of times in math lab, all of this would be established and you just have to pick which one is the right one. But just telling you why we're doing what we're doing, why we use P in the last one, using the mean symbol in this one, because we're talking about the mean price. Notice equal sign right here, 86,012. That's the the number that we're looking at. And we want to know if it's going to be different. So it could be less than, it could be more than. So it doesn't matter which one. So that means we would use the not equal to. And that means it'll be two-tailed. All right, any problem with that one? All right, last one like this. Standard deviation of contents of a 64-ounce bottle of detergent using an old filling machine is 0.230. I said 0.230, 0.23 ounces. The manufacturer wants to know if the new filing machine has less variability. I'm gonna get it right. All right, so this time our symbol, standard deviation symbol, because we have the standard deviation of the contents. So that's why we have a standard deviation symbol. All right, all this is the same. Once again, we're using our standard deviation symbol, equal, and we're looking at 0.23, excuse me, as our number, and we're looking at less than. And so that's why we have the less than symbol, and that's left tail. All right, are we good? Go to the next thing. All right. So I can get all of them in here. Okay. So now when it comes to hypothesis testing, there are 4 outcomes that could occur. The first 2 are correct conclusions. The second 2, or in other words, 3 and 4, are errors. So the first one, you reject the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true. So that would be correct. You reject the null because the alternative is correct. Or you do not reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. So if it's true, you don't want to reject it. So those first 2 are correct conclusions. Now the third one, you reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis was true. So that's type 1 error. And then the fourth one, you do not reject the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true, excuse me. And that's a type 2 error. So notice our conclusions are based on rejecting or not rejecting the null hypothesis. All right, can we scroll up? All right, level of significance is denoted by Greek letter alpha. It's the probability of making a type 1 error. So when we go to the next page of notes, we'll see the importance of making sure that that is established properly, or why it matters and all the good stuff like that. I think that's the end of these, but yep, that's the end of these notes. So when we go to the next page, we'll talk more about it. Normally, I can't think of a problem in MATLAB that does not already give you what alpha is going to be in your problem. Now, if you were doing it on your own, then you would have to, choose your own alpha. But in MATLAB, all of your significance levels will already be chosen for your specific problem. So that's not something you have to choose, but you will have to operate it and include it as a part of your steps. All right, anybody still copying before we go to the next page of notes? All right, so we can switch. Everybody good? All right, here we go. And we're starting right here. So we just mentioned that alpha is the probability of making a type 1 error. Somebody said that was fast. What you mean? Let me know what you mean. All right, so somebody said, oh yeah, well, we did, we closed out chapter 8 on the last time we had a lecture, and then we did the test on 7 and 8 last week. And so yeah, we just didn't do anything in 9 because anything we needed from 9, I was just going to incorporate it in this lecture. So we didn't do anything for chapter 9. So yep. So we have alpha, which is the probability of making a type 1 error. Yep, we jumped over chapter 9. And then we have Greek letter beta. So kind of like a B for us, but have a little extra stem to the left. That's the probability of making a type 2 error. So the probability of making a type 1 error is chosen by the researcher before the sample data are collected. So that's why I was saying that you would choose that. Once again, when you get into your problems, MATLAB will have a problem and have already chosen what your significance level will be, what your alpha will be. All right. The choice of the level of significance alpha depends on the consequences of making a type 1 error. And consequences means what is your application, what's your problem, what you're doing research on, and all the stuff like that. So that's how you would determine what your alpha would be. So if the consequences are severe, alpha should be small, in other words, 0.01. All right, scrolling up some. If the consequences are not severe, a higher alpha can be chosen, which is 0.05 or 0.1. All right. So the level of significance is not always set at 0.01. That's the smallest, because reducing alpha increases the probability of beta. You should be good with that top statement. And so there we go. They have an inverse relationship. As one goes up, the other one goes down. So, how high alpha is will, matter. And it depends, once again, on what your application is, what you're doing research on, how high alpha needs to be, how small alpha needs to be, because it's going to affect beta and all the good stuff like that. The possibility of making a type 1 error versus a type 2 error. Getting that deep into it, when you're talking about your calculations, MATLAB is not going to ask you which one should you choose, no, it's not going to do that, but it's just giving you the background. And then it may ask you about a relationship. You should know there's an inverse relationship somewhere, some type of definition type. But it's not, once again, they're not going to ask you to choose alpha. They're going to give you alpha. And then according to the alpha that they give you, you should be able to walk through the steps of your hypothesis testing. I think that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Questions? Any questions? All right. So, excuse me, that's 10-1. I didn't want to get into 10-2 today. First of all, there's no reason to rush it. And then also, I wanted to give you those steps so that if you wanted to walk, along with me, maybe you print it out or pull it up on your computer along with me with the steps, then you can do so. And so when we, do 10.2, we're going to, walk through each one of the steps accordingly and make sure you guys are good. And once again, 10.2 hypothesis testing will not have a separate test, but it will be a part of your final exam. You should be able to see your final exam review and see what is up there. And after next class, you'll be able to ask, whatever questions you want to ask about anything to make sure you're prepared for your final exam. I'm not going to take your notes away or anything like that. So you can set up your notes according to your final exam review, and it should help you streamline your studies and streamline your notes so that you don't have to use the whole 2 hours. Now, for those who have accommodations and you need more than 2 hours, you need to get with me outside of class so we can set you up to take it somewhere else. Oh, hit the button. So we can set you up to take it somewhere else so that you can have the time that you have set up to receive. All right, but don't forget that. So you wouldn't be taking it the same day as everyone else, and you wouldn't be taking it through me either. But you will be taking it, through the center. But once again, You're not going to set it up. You come to me so I can set it up and make sure that you're straight. All right. Anything else? Anybody else before we close today? Everybody good? All right. Yep, that's the end of 10.1. That's the end of 10.1. Yep. Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, that's in 10.1. 10.1 was just setting us up. And then we'll get into 10.2. And that'll be it as far as new material is concerned. All right. Anything else? Anybody else before we close? All right. So we close, we getting, it's crunch time, y'all. So to take advantage of the fact that I'm not dumping a whole bunch of material on you. If you need to get caught up, get caught up. And let's not push everything to the last weekend. Let's try to, knock the stuff out in a reasonable fashion so that you can be comfortable closing out the semester. All right. So you guys have a good one. Be safe, and I will see you next class. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.